Hi friends, it's Sarah from Ruffles and Rain Boots, and I am so excited to debut the Chonky Gnome. We're making the large chef today, and if you would like to learn how, boop, just stick around. As always, please like this video so I know you're here crafting with me. Now, those of you who have been with me, I debuted this guy in November of last year. And yes, because I'm one of those gotta deliver more than value than price, oh, it's taken me so long, but I have now created this chunky pattern where you can use a belly or a booty. You have multiple heights. You have multiple apron styles included. You have mittens and gloves and hats. Just everything you can think of. I have in this gnome. I will be launching a holiday one later. Speaking of holiday, this guy with no arms, I gave my sister, and he's super cute as well. All right, so I have already shared how to make a chef hat a couple of different ways, or a few different ways. I have also shared how to make the easy oven mitt for this exact gnome. Now, this guy, it also has apron styles. You can see here made with a sewing machine and made with a child's pre-made apron. The one I'm using now is a tall apron with an applique pocket, but I also include this one with the triple pocket as well. So back to this fella, he is 12 inches tall. He is made with the tall body and the full apron. Like I said, I just created an applique pocket with a felt heart. I did include the detail that I showed you in the chef hat video. I thought it was just really cute when it all lined up. And then I added the Ruffles and Rain Boots button. I will put the link below to the fabulous Etsy shop where I get those. This takes about an hour to make. Your first one will take longer. So I'm using a 14 gauge wire, poly pellets, and polyfill. I'm also using a hot glue gun, sewing machine, needle, and embroidery thread. For our pattern pieces, we have 4 mittens, 1 nose, 2 arms, 1 round base, and 1 body. To get started, you guessed it, we're just gonna put right sides together. I'm using a fleece for everything, including the hat actually. I'm gonna put those right sides together, pin them, and take them to my sewing machine. In where I'm gonna use a generous 1/4 inch seam allowance because we need this to be quite sturdy. When I put on the base, you can see it kind of puckers a little bit, but it doesn't when you turn it outside right. So when I'm sewing, there is no puckering. It's just puckering when it's all squished up like this. But I promise you, I'll show you every little piece so you can be sure. Beginners sewers have tested this pattern. Onto the nose, we're going to start just right of center with a very generous portion of, coordinating embroidery thread, which is unsplit. We're gonna start on the outside of the fabric, which is the part that is showing, no knot at the end, and we're gonna make a running stitch all the way around the oval. You're gonna stay about a 1/2 inch away from the edge for all of it. When you come back around to just right of center, you're gonna exit right next to where you started, and that'll leave you these 2 generous strings, which will get even longer when you stuff it and pull it tight. Now, I have a tendency to overstep my noses because everybody boops them. Everybody being me. All right, so then when I tied it tight, or when I pulled it tight, I did make sure that the top and bottom of the nose did get squished in. You can see it here. Now we have our boopable nose, but we're not yet done. Before we put it aside, we're going to thread one of those long pieces of embroidery thread, and we're going to put it through that center hole, and then we're going to come out about a 1/2 inch away from where we went in. And that's going to give us the anchor piece to attach this nose to our body. All right, now we can set that aside and move on to the body. You're just gonna turn it all right sides out. You see how it's flat on the bottom? There's no puckering. Just rub that seam in your fingers and it'll be fine. Make sure your seams for your arms are in the center, and then add 3 full cups of weight. I get a lot of questions about weight. I'm telling you, I believe poly pellets are the best for heirloom pieces. And because this takes a lot of time, I would say this is an heirloom piece. I did use the fabric scraps from all my pattern cutting to also add bulk to this. And then I'm going to start stuffing. It is critical to stuff this guy really well. So you see how the fabric is puckering, and you see how that bump is not bumped out. We want all of that stuffed. So this does take a good bit of stuffing. Again, heirloom piece here. This is not something you're going to be shipping, but you will sell this or give this and people will be super impressed. All right, so once you have a good bit of stuffing here, the top 2 inches or so are still open. You can see it here. We're gonna make sure the sides are smooth before we move on, because see that little part at the top? That's where we're gonna add our arms before we add anything else. Speaking of our arms, I'm gonna show you how they're assembled, but don't do it this way. I'll just tell you. Here we go. We're gonna end up stuffing this mitten first, okay? So I'm using this very generous, it's very, very strong wire. It's 14 gauge, you get it at Home Depot. You can see it here. I'm gonna show you what I have. There you go. 14 gauge. Now I'm gonna use a Posca paint pen to roll down the top and bottom edges of these, and I'm gonna put the mitten, it's gonna go all the way to the end of the mitten, and then it's gonna stop right before the top of the arm. See, that's how it's gonna be assembled. All right, so you're gonna put the stuffing in the mitten first. I've done this now for 5 gnomes, which is 10 arms, even though only 8 of them made it with arms. We're gonna make sure that this mitten is really nice and firm, especially the thumb. We're gonna add the stuffing to the bottom of the mitten and then place your wire in, just kind of shove it and move it in, and then add stuffing around that wire. All right. And you're going to leave the top 1/2 inch or so open. When you squeeze it, it moves, but we're going to make sure that's all put down. But before you stuff this arm, the easiest way is actually slip it on, pull it halfway into, or a 1/2 inch into the mitten, and then pin it in place in the front and the back before just stuffing this arm completely. And then roll the arm in between your hands to make sure you're distributing the polyfill. Do leave the top 2 inches without stuffing, because that's where we're going to attach our arm later. All right, so, well, one of those is bent, but make sure they're the same size and where your mitten is placed, and then glue on your mitten. You can absolutely hand sew this on. Okay, I was just, I'm just taking the easy route here with the hot glue. If you do have these little white or contrasting start and reverse areas for your thread, just take a color fast marker and cover those up. Or you can add trim. All right, so because of this column we left here, we're going to attach our arms. I do recommend adding the bend into your arm for wherever you like the elbow. Some people like it a little further up, some people like it down. The reason is because we're going to put it just back of center. These are very generous arms. Just make sure that you like where they're falling for whatever you want them to hold. All right, so then I'm going to pin these on. I'm going to take some split embroidery thread and a very large needle, and I'm going to backstitch all the way from one side of this arm to the other, okay? And then I'm going to go back the other way using X's. And I figured you can hot glue these on, but because they're so sturdy and because this is a bigger guy, I would not. I would actually sew these on to make sure that these do not move anywhere. All right, so I'm just gonna cut this off, tie it, and do the same thing on the other side. There you go. All right, so I did straighten the arms just to make sure I liked where everything was. All right, now we're just gonna stuff this column. This column has to be very firm, and the reason it has to be firm is because it's gonna hold our mustache, nose, and hat. And you can see I'm just making sure everything is still fluffed out. I like the placement of my arms, and now I'm gonna move on to the next step. And the next step is to finish whatever apron you would like. Now I'm gonna probably see if I didn't lose the footage for my aprons and show you how to make these. These are pretty simple to make. So I'm going to align it with the bottom, and then you can tie it or you can glue it. So on this particular one, I was running out of this red and white ribbon, so my ties would have scrunched up the top column of the body. So I'm just going to glue these, but I will show you in other videos what calls out, and for the pattern, actually you can tie it. All right, so I'm going to pin these in place because it's going to help us set up our entire front of our gnome next. And for the front, I'm using a 2x6 inch Mongolian fur mustache. So I'm going to split the fur to the fabric backing, and now I'm going to flip it over. Because you'll be able to see this from both sides, from all sides actually, I highly recommend you do this one extra step of folding down the top 1/2 inch of fur onto the fabric backing, and then folding up it's 1 inch, because we're gonna meet in the middle. That makes sense. I'll show you here. I can't explain it, I can just show you. There you go. So you put glue on the bottom down here. Now, if you want to have a posable mustache, like I've shown with my standing sock gnomes, you can put a piece of wire in here, but make it like 12 gauge so it's a little more pliable than the 14. And then you have a mustache. All right, so now I'm just gonna brush that out, get it all swanky. I don't think swanky is said enough. Okay, now I'm gonna set the mustache aside, but I am going to get a coordinating color of embroidery thread, tie a generous knot on that side, and I'm going to go in through the body of the gnome and start attaching my mustache. Now to attach it, I just went straight through the center. You can see here. And you can even squish it down when you're sewing, which gives it even a more poofy look. And then I'm just gonna go back and forth in and out of the body and the mustache. Now I put my stitches very close together so that you wouldn't see the embroidery thread. And could you hot glue this on? Yes, you could hot glue this on. Again, I'm making heirloom pieces, so I don't want to hot glue everything that I cannot hot glue. All right, so once we're just gonna stuff that all, roll back up our column, and then it's time to attach the nose. We're gonna do this in 2 stages. First, we're gonna attach the top by threading one of those long tails through the needle and putting it right above the mustache. And then don't do anything else, remove that. Add the needle to the other side and pull that through. Now, once I tied the knot on the top, I went back through the top a couple of times. Then I took a white thread because I'm going in through the nose, but I'm also going to be over the mustache. And then I just did the same thing, in and out, pulling the bottom of that nose down so that it covered just the top of the mustache. He's coming together. So you can move the mustache out of the way after you position your apron and then hot glue the apron straps down. I slipped on the pre-made hat and then I glued the hat to the body and then the arms, like right here, I just glued it right over the arms as well. Now, because I don't like the little scrunchy part of the nose, this is 100% optional, as most of the stuff is. I just took a 2-inch piece of fur, folded the front or the top and the bottom onto itself, and then glued that to the top of the nose. I think it gives it just something cute and it hides all that wrinkly stuff. Which you can totally leave. I'm weird. Give it an intense nose boop, let it dry, and look, your guy's ready for his big debut. Giving him a cookie sheet or something would be super cute. I said before, I'm super proud of this pattern. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of it? Get the pattern link down below, and as always, I sincerely appreciate you being here. Like and subscribe for more crafty fun.